Always keep pre-made coils covered with plastic. If you have to store coils for the next day, make sure the coil is curved so it fits properly on the tray, and spray it with a water bottle before wrapping. To use spheres as a variation in your coil method, you can use leftover bits of coil if they're still plastic, or create a coil and begin by dividing it in half so that the clay is portioned in equal lengths. The equal pieces can now be formed into spheres. To use the sphere variation, you could line them around the coil with no space in between, or you could space them out equal distance. Start by placing two spheres across from each other, and then fill in the dividing spaces. Each sphere has to be blended into the coil just below it on the interior. Next, fill in the spaces in between with a coil. Once the coil is securely in place, you will add the remaining spheres in the valleys just in between the other spheres. Next, you will need to blend all the pieces together. Carefully brace the exterior of your vessel with your other hand. Finish smoothing with a dry sponge. In between design variations, it's a good idea to add a regular coil for stability. You can use small plastic pieces of clay to fill in any holes or gaps. To create the squiggle variation, simply fold the clay up and down. You can use plastic clay, or will need to pre-make squiggles and spray with a spray bottle. Drying coils will break if you try this technique. If you plan to use the squiggle variation all around the perimeter of the vessel, you will need 3 or 4 coils. Before joining to the coil vessel, blend and smooth the interior side of the squiggle variation. Join the squiggled sections to the coil below and then to each other. Finish the squiggle variation with a solid regular coil. Blend and smooth with your finger or a blending tool, and finish with a sponge. To create uniform spirals, divide the coils into equal lengths. You may have to change the size of the spirals, make more, or modify your plan to get the layer to fit all the way around the perimeter of the vessel. Coils must be very plastic. If stored overnight, you will need to spray them with a water bottle so that they can absorb the moisture before doing this technique the next day. Roll the spiral firmly and tightly to avoid trapped negative space. Immediately cover each spiral with plastic. If it's going to be 20 minutes or longer before you join the spirals, lightly spray them with water and cover them. If you don't plan to join them until the next day, spray well with water and then cover completely with plastic. You can join spirals as whole pieces. For easy assembly, however, cutting the bottom edge will enable you to fit the spirals flush against the top coil of the vessel. To do this, place spirals in a row, firmly put a ruler over top of them, and cut using the ruler as a guide. A spiral should be joined together in sections of 2 or 3 before adding them to the vessel. Before allowing your piece to dry to greenware, make sure that you completely smoothed out the interior of the vessel. It may also be necessary to go over the exterior with a dry sponge and then at the very end a slightly damp sponge to smooth out any rough edges.